you look at good team, you look at large market, and look at not so competitive space and so on. Those kind of things are very obvious. Everyone knows you and tells you that. But the right way of looking at this is to see what kind of investments Bloom has made over the last 10 to 11 years. The important thing that Bloom has looked at.
Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Indianaut podcast, where we interview some of India's next best analytical and creative minds who are not only revolutionizing their own field, but at the same time transforming India's entrepreneurial ecosystem one step at a time. Our guest for the day is a director in Blume Ventures investment team. He previously co-founded Headstart Network, one of India's largest startup communities with more than 1 lakh entrepreneurs associated with it. He is also a co-creator of India DeepTech, an industry alliance for promoting deep tech startups. He is an alumnus of IIT Bombay and NIT Trichy. We have with us Arpit Agarwal. Let us jump right into the conversation. Hi Arpit, I hope you're all settled in.
Yes, lovely to be here on this podcast, Gautam. Thank you for inviting me. I'm hoping to have a great discussion today.
Thank you. Hoping for the same, Arpit. So, Arpit, let's get started. It's been almost a decade since you've been with Bloom, right? You hold an MBA from IIT Bombay and a BTech from NIT Trichy. Prior to Bloom, you've had multiple stints here and there, and you've also been the co-founder of your very own entrepreneurial community called Headstart. So, in your own words, what first drew you to venture capital? How has the journey been so far? And tell us your Indianaut origin story.
Lots of questions in one. Okay, let me see where to begin. Humble beginnings. I come from a tier 2 town called Agra in UP, born to middle class parents, learned the value of money from there. Also good education. They also showed me how to save money and take care of all the necessary things because middle class household has all of those priorities. Went to college. Thankfully, my father was able to save enough money to fund my education. First college. MBA, of course, was with a loan that I took, which because he was in a bank, he helped me take the loan as well. What really happened was around this time, it was a very protected life for first 17 years when I was in Agra for between two schools, and it was a big cultural shock when I landed in Trichy. So one important occasion which shaped my personality was this culture shock, which is very different from a small town in UP to a small town in Tamil Nadu, even though they're part of the same country, but they are very different in all respects. This is an important thing. Also, life is in the campus, and life as an independent person now, where you are not dependent on your parents are nowhere to be found, and you have to make your own friends. You have to figure out what your core interests are. You have to take care of yourself. All of those are very interesting experiences that I went through. Thereafter, I came to Bangalore, very big city. Those days also Bangalore was quite bustling, and a lot was happening here. Around this time, I was lucky to have bumped into a few people who were interested in creating communities. I didn't even know the word community that existed, but in 2006, April 2006, I landed at a bar camp, Bangalore. This was the first Bangalore bar camp, and I realized that the energy in that place was the best energy I can imagine, and I really wanted to be there forever. So I joined hands in December 06. We did bar camp 2 in Bangalore. Thereafter, we did a couple of more bar camps. And around the same time, we also realized that things like bar camps are quite informal. They are, unconferences. It is very hard to build up on the energy that got built with an event, but you have to sustain it by having a formal organization around it. That was the core idea around Headstart. In 2007, around mid of 2007, we put together a few of us, there were 14 of us actually, who became co-founders of what is called as Headstart Network Foundation. We started with a single line objective of creating an entrepreneur ecosystem in India, because none of that really existed. But what we did not realize how much it is going to impact all of our lives. So from then till about next maybe 8 years of my life, I was actively involved with Headstart. Throughout this time, I was meeting entrepreneurs, trying to do some events, putting together panels and speakers and discussions and sponsorships and so on. And throughout this period, I realized how much I enjoyed working with the entrepreneurs, all kind of entrepreneurs. It just doesn't have to be, typical startups. Those days, there were not too many startups. There were all other kind of business, sometimes services business also. Sometimes companies doing marketing consulting. Sometimes people are doing design consulting. Even CA firms used to attend our events. All of these people had one thing in common, that they chose to take the path which was otherwise not prescribed by someone. And that
Right,
really
right.
drew me to all of them. As a consequence, I ended up meeting a lot of different founders, figured out what founders do and what founders are, and also eventually got inspired to start my own business. That's a separate story. But I think I got a very good grounding in entrepreneurship. And that grounding in entrepreneurship told me that this is the place that I want to build my career in. So starting 2014, I have been in this career all of these years. Starting 2012, I have been in this career all of these years. The core of this career that I have built is that it is in and about entrepreneurs, and it allows me to also go deeper into a few relationships over the 7 to 10 years that we spend with a particular startup. This is the best part about venture capital that attracts me. I'm not a typical investor who would have joined a venture capital firm because this is a very interesting thing to do. But I joined venture capital firm thinking I want to be of use to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship to me is the prime mover of this world. Nothing new really happens without entrepreneurship. And I am in a privileged place where I can enable and I can excite and I can power some of those dreams. It is it is exciting. It was exciting 10 years back. It continues to be exciting today. And I'm really thankful that I find myself in this place, which also, by the way, pays reasonable. You can keep yourself uploaded. There's no problem. But then that was never the core idea. The fact that you can create new things and help people create new things is very exciting and continues to, be the reason why I love my job.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Arpit. And it's a beautiful timeline that you've shared with us. So, Arpit, I want to ask you one thing, and this is something I was thinking in the middle. You must also credit IIT Bombay for being a huge influence on you pivoting towards creating your own entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? Because IIT Bombay itself, like, if you if you don't mind me
Yeah.
saying this, वहाँ तो हवा में ही entrepreneurship की सुगंध आती है. So because IIT Bombay also
Yeah.
has one of the largest student bodies for towards entrepreneurship, and I think
Yes.
it was during that time only when it was active. So, do you
Yes.
accredit IIT Bombay as one of the biggest inspirations towards starting Headstart?
Not really. I didn't. I was not part of IIT Bombay when we started Headstart. I was, in fact,
Okay.
I entered. I was probably the few people who would have entered into IIT Bombay where they knew what entrepreneurship meant. Of course, IIT.
Okay.
I should.
Okay.
I will definitely credit IIT Bombay for inspiring me towards technology commercialization.
Okay.
In just before I graduated, we did an event in IIT called Tech Connect, which was like a science exhibition of their best research. And in very first week that I landed in IIT Bombay in 2007, I landed at the incubator called Sign. People at Sign are still quite good friends. I engage with them frequently. The important thing is that, because I knew what entrepreneurship was about, I could relate to them. I could see that this is a business which is being built around entrepreneurship. In the
Okay.
process, interacted with several people in eCell. Some of them continue to be friends even till today. And I also noticed, the kind of amazing ecosystem that eCell and IIT Bombay have created around entrepreneurs. And I really think that's an inspiration for any institution in India. It just doesn't happen to be my inspiration to start up. That's all. But otherwise, they have been doing an excellent job. Whatever
Right. Right.
whoever thought about this before I entered that campus, really had 20-30 year vision about this, and they are really pursuing that in a big manner.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so Arpit, let's switch gears now and let's talk about Bloom. Okay, and more specifically, let's talk about the exciting development which took place at Blume Ventures. So Bloom, which has backed unicorns such as an Academy and exciting startups such as Slice, Spinny, and Ola, has marked the final close of its fourth and largest ever fundraise, which is, I believe, at about $250 million, which was announced back in December 2022. And not only that, all of the previous investors of Bloom have participated in this fundraise. As you are an integral part of Bloom, what went into the lead up of this fundraise? Coming out of it, what's Bloom's future plan of action? And lastly, given how it's an India centric fund, why India and why now?
Because one has to be thankful for all the confidence that our investors have shown in us. Yes, of course, where our performance has not been bad, that definitely helps. It is the most important reason why people continue to back you. However, it is not just performance; it is also their confidence in our ability to build an institution. The investment into VC funds is a 10-year vehicle. It requires someone to show the capability of building a team to be able to remain an institution for a long enough time. And it is not easy for people to trust you, but typically once you have won over their trust, they want to back you again and again. So there is definitely that confidence that they have shown in us. All of this obviously is not possible till you see all the founder community also coming together and supporting you. Some of the founders that we have invested in have become very large companies. Talk about Purple, talk about Spinny, talk about Slice, or talk about an Academy, or so many other companies which have become quite large over these years. Their performance is very important. Otherwise, nothing like this would exist. And of course, it is also a larger team effort. A very large team is putting their effort behind it. So many people introducing so many of their friends and family and other people to be able to help us fundraise. So yeah, I mean, it's a lovely place to be. Also, one must also admit that you cannot think of a fundraise and not think of exit. Exits are going to have been hard in India, and returning this money is going to be very hard. So that should keep everyone very humble and stay closer to the ground, because you can't just revel in the fact that you have raised too much money. You have to also return 5x of this or more over the period of time. So that is going to be equally hard as well. So yeah, I mean, raising money is feels good, a lot of confidence, but a lot of work that remains to be done.
Right. And Arpit, let's talk about your personal philosophy towards the bull case for India, right? Because this is an India-centric fund. So I want to understand
Yes.
what is it that you're pitching to these investors, that why India and why now?
I mean, there are enough and more articles being written about India. We have a population which is very young. Our country is growing faster than most countries in this world. Our ability to produce technology has been proven. Our ability to produce public goods like UPI have also been proven, or Aadhaar have led to dramatic outcomes. They are now better than everything else in past, because we have not had a background in this. Our infrastructure is top notch. Talk about airports, ports, railways, highways. All of those things are top notch. So the one thing that, please understand, that investment and returns is a function of growth of the economy also. So if the economy is growing very fast, then returning money becomes easier. Economy is growing slowly, returning money becomes that much harder. So as you understand this very well, the important thing therefore is there has to be a much larger and broad-based ambition of Indians, and confidence about Indians in the world, which is reflected also partly in the fundraise that we have. The bull case for India, I mean, of course, we all know that we will become third largest economy at some point. We know that we are the largest country in terms of young population. We know that we have world-class institutions like IITs and so on, which are able to produce world-class engineers and so many other professionals like Delhi University. And we know that we have a very strong capability of generating and producing unicorns. We crossed 100 last year. We crossed another 2025 this year. So more and more is bound to happen. One thing that we often don't credit enough is that this particular government over the last 8 years, ever since they have focused on Startup India policy, has been doing whatever it needs to remove the stops necessary so that the startups can prosper. So there is this invisible hand of the state behind most of this stuff as well. Although state can't do much until private enterprise takes off, but there is that as well. For example, look at what the policies that we currently have in electric vehicle space. They're very forward-looking and positive, and which is the reason why you see so much demand in EVs happening and so on. So
Right, right,
all
right.
of these things matter. Sometimes we often don't believe in it, but it's important. So it's all put together a very positive story that everyone outside of India also believes in.
Definitely, definitely. I know. Arpit, let's build on this, okay? And let's talk about your personal mandate at Bloom now, okay? So at Bloom, you personally manage the science-led and hardware startups, such as commercial electrical vehicles and biotechnology. And I believe some examples of your investments include Cashify, Rail Yatri, Milk Basket, MechMocha, Tricog, and Spinny. So I'm reading this off a list. So
Yeah, yeah.
I want you to answer my next question from this perspective. Imagine that the next startup, which is about to, pitch to you next week, is watching this episode, and they're on the lookout for some Easter egg. Okay, so the startup founders are trying to find out what is the secret sauce you look for in a startup, and that's exactly what they want to pitch to you. Okay, so I want you to candidly spill the beans for that startup founder. What do you, Arpit Agarwal, look for in a potential investment?
So let me look at the right way of answering this question. The easy answer is that you look at good team, you look at large market, and look at not so competitive space and so on. Those kind of things are very obvious. Everyone knows you and tells you that. But the right way of looking at this is to see what kind of investments Bloom has made over the last 10 to 11 years. The important thing that Bloom has looked at is that we have always over-indexed on founders who are obsessed about something. They're either obsessed
Okay.
about solving a problem, or they're obsessed about customer experience, or they're obsessed about building new products, or they're obsessed about just building a very large uh, enterprise. So one thing that cannot be taken away from the kind of investments we have made mostly is that these founders are missionary in nature. I think this is something that is very, very important. At the same time, they have the capability to really put this together. Entrepreneurship is always about approaching problem without regard to current resources. But your people have the capability to put together the resources, are able to build a construct, are able to solve a large problem, and therefore them being missionary and being capable. At the same time, these people typically uh, would also be very fast and agile, because entrepreneurship will throw you into situations which are unforeseen and you had not imagined, and you have to still be able to respond to them, at least at the early first 2 3 years of your life, to be able to respond to them as you get into those situations. These are three things: being like a missionary, being quite capable, and being fast and agile are the three things which you'll see most of the Bloom investments representing. Some of our companies grow very, very fast. Some of the companies actually grow much faster than their competition, and sometimes they actually grow even ahead of most people's imagination. And that can only happen when the founders are really, really focused on the task at hand and are not optimizing for, eventually all entrepreneurship will lead to wealth creation. That's the core, right? That's the reason why that's the reason, eventual goal. However, that cannot be the most important goal for people. If people are optimizing for either wealth in their mind, or they're optimizing for being free and being their own bosses, I think it is a wrong idea to start up, because starting up is much harder journey than that, and much of these motivations will quickly go down the drain when you face with the
Understood.
adversities. So without being
Understood.
missionary, you will not be able to tide over the adversities that you face.
Understood. Understood. Thank you, Arpit, for sharing that, and I do hope that then our viewers who are also aspiring to be entrepreneurs one day, they take
Yeah.
heed of this and they actually identify that one problem they obsess over, and they match their capabilities with it, and understand that it's not going to be an easy journey, and it'll
Yes.
come with its hardships, and they have to be fast and agile towards it.
So
So
if I could just take 30 more seconds, there are important
right,
things about entrepreneurship which one needs to always mention, remind themselves. One is entrepreneurship is about uncertainty and ambiguity. One should not forget that it is more hard and uncertain and ambiguous as compared to everything else that you have done in past for the first time entrepreneurs. Second, you will get a lot of advice. One has to be able to seek all the advice, soak it in, and still make their own decision. There's something that you are not often trained in. And third is you're always and always selling. So if you think that you are not good salesperson, you don't like to talk to new people, that is probably not good for you because you'll be doing it all the time.
right. I read somewhere that you had this advice for to be entrepreneurs, that they should always start off their careers as a salesman, right? As a
Salesperson,
salesperson.
yes.
Yeah. And once you learn the art of selling, the art of the deal, basically, it is only then afterwards that you can become a proper entrepreneur.
I would like to believe so because as an entrepreneur, you are selling ahead of you making anything because you're selling your vision to the investor, you're selling vision to your employees, you're selling vision to your co-founders, you're selling vision to the market, to the media, and you have to make them believe that you are going to make it happen. And if you're not able to sell that and pursue it, and it is very hard to be an entrepreneur without some of the sales capabilities. You may not be doing sales. Like for example, founder and CTOs do not need to do sales per se, but they still need to be selling to their own employees when they pitch it to investors and so on. So it is important. I think it's a most important thing for an entrepreneur life skill.
Right, right. I think this also closely correlates to, you have to be an excellent storyteller, because you have to convince your employees to join you. You have to convince your co-founder to join you. You have to convince your investors to
Yes.
join you. You have to convince your
Yes.
customers to join you. And I was just reflecting back on while you were answering this, as to our initial discussion, as to when you asked me why I started this podcast. And I was just thinking of my answer, and I was thinking that, okay, that was not a good story. Like I had a lot of thoughts in my mind, but I was not able to perfectly, convince you of why I started this. And I think that's the most important thing. Like, not just selling, but telling your story, basically. And you have to be so convincing in it, and you have to show your own conviction towards it, that the other person is as impressed as you are, and they buy in, basically.
You're right. I was also reflecting on some of the answers that I have given, that I could have been better prepared and be more articulate about this. So yeah, that's important. And when you meet an investor, let's talk about this. This is an interesting segue. When a founder meets an investor, you know the odds are anyway stacked against the founder always. He or she may not have any clue what the investor knows or how the investor is going to think about it. It is not going to happen. So therefore, your access as a founder to the investor is only your raw passion and your ability to build something very, very large. If you do not demonstrate these two things, you are definitely not going to go forward. So it is very important to know what the investors are looking for in the first and second meetings. Typically, they're looking for a person who has a massive vision and has demonstrated capability to be able to execute on that vision. Right? And of course, it should not be something which is run of the mill. It should be something which can be really scalable and so on. But assuming you are able to qualify those with important criteria, you will be able to convince them to get you forward in the meeting. One mistake that founders often make when they pitch to investors is that they think that if this investor does not come in their business, it will come, or does not come in the business, it will become a make or break. One thing that I want to also tell founders who are listening to this podcast is that even if you think that having an investor or not having an investor is going to make or break your business, do not let the investor know this. One
Okay.
shouldn't think like this because it's your business end of the day, but do not let the investor know this, because the moment they smell desperation,
Hmm.
we are tuned to reject you.
Right.
Right? We
Right.
by the sheer design of this ecosystem, you have too many people pitching to you for the same amount of money that you're investing. So the moment
Right.
I see something which shows some sign of weakness, I am likely to reject you, even
Right.
if you
Right.
are so good all this time. Right? Because ultimately, how I am responding, I am also responding to my own market. I'm responding to the market saying, if no one is touching this founder, that he or she has become so desperate, why do I need to invest in her? That's it. It's gone. Right? You're not going
Right.
to get
Right.
more, even if you. And second, foreign founders also do not think of investors as people, or investors as people they can take feedback from, or take value, draw value from, or build a lifelong relationship with. Often the relationship is very transactional, saying, I want to pitch to you for your money, which you can write a check on, and if you do not invest in it, I will forget you. Or or that's the only reason why I'm meeting you. One should also look at this, the meeting founders, meeting investors, as an ability to build a relationship. The person you are meeting probably has seen many more startups, probably has seen a lot of patterns. There is something that you can take back and learn. If nothing else, you can introduce you to two of their portfolio companies or people in their network who you can do business with tomorrow. But definitely think of starting a relationship. Do not only think of pitching. If you
Right.
follow
Right.
this, the founders will become a lot more, I can't say successful at pitching or
Right.
raising money, but they'll definitely become a lot more comfortable, and a lot of angst and emotion can be moderated.
Right, right. And not to sound cliche, but I think the best way to summarize what you previously mentioned is that you want to give a potential investor the view that you are a rocket ship that is going towards the moon, right? And they should jump onto the bandwagon. You don't want to give them the picture that this is a ship that might sink, and the investors helping them keep it afloat. You wanna show them that it's actually something that's going straight to the top, rather than something that's staying afloat because of you.
That is true. That is true. One should never get impression that this is going to sink. Even if it was going to sink, you cannot leave that impression with them.
Right, 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 right. You can't show desperation. Right. Okay. So, Arpit, let's build on top of what you said, that investors and venture capitalists are also people. Okay, and let's talk about your personal, your human side over here. Okay, so
Mhm.
it's easy for anyone to get emotionally attached to their picks or investments. After all, this isn't like investing in mature companies. You, as a venture capitalist, invest in teams, invest in people which make up the early stage startups. So, keeping that in mind, for our viewers, can you share an example of a particularly challenging or memorable investment you've made where your emotions were involved?
Everyone. I have probably led about 20 investments in the last 9 years, and every single investment has been emotional journey for me. It could be a
Okay.
different kind of emotion all the time. Sometimes it's all positive emotion, sometimes it's negative emotion, but there is a nervousness throughout this journey that I have also felt along with the founders, and uh, and I do not think early stage investors can be successful without being emotionally attached to their picks. And by design, some of the picks will not work out, and that is completely fine. But one has to accept that not being emotional is not an option. It cannot be clinical only. Of course, you have to apply your objective mind. You have to also apply, or do enough research to come to a conclusion of investing or not investing. But once you have, but even till today, when I do make an investment, the question is very personal in nature. I have to ask whether I feel solidly behind this particular business or not. If that does not happen, then there's no more battle to be won. You're lost already. But if that happens, then you can do something about it. So that's always a personal call. In terms of emotion, see, every company goes through tough times. Every single company, the company that you have mentioned, there was a company called Milk Basket, there's a company called Cashify, there's a company called Intercity, there's a company called Spinny, there is Euler Motors. Every one of these companies, which are now some mid-sized companies or large-sized companies, have gone through tough times. What is really special about Blume is that we have never chosen to turn our back on the founder. Every given occasion, we have chosen to stand by them. Of course, the business may not always allow them to invest more money. We may not have money. Our earlier funds were smaller in nature, and money does run out at some point of time. However, to be with them, to be standing with them, to be able to say that I am here for you and you are an important person for me, forget whatever business is happening or not happening, sometimes leaves founders with a amazing experience. And this is one of the reasons why founders love to refer us to other founders, because in the tough times, we will be standing by them. Now, again, I'm not saying I will stand by you even if you wrong me, even if you are not doing right by me, but mostly, even if your objective is not right, if you are doing some kind of fraud, no, obviously not. I have to be careful about this. But in general, this helps. In general, this helps to build a reputation in the market.
Definitely, Arpit. So, Arpit, I want to dig deeper into your personal philosophy. Like you previously mentioned, you have led close to 20 investments and counting, right? So, can you share any lessons that you've learned from your successes as well as failures as a venture capitalist?
And this is fairly fresh, so it is top of my mind. I don't even think about it. One important thing that I realized is that as much as you may want to believe a sector or a business will succeed, the fact that a business or the market size is not very large is going to play out. And also there are sectors which may be very large, but their time has not come. So it is going to take its own time. So one important learning in my experience has been that one cannot avoid the gravity of a market or a sector. It will play its role in the future of the business that you're investing in. So as much as you may like and you may hope that the founder will be able to tide over those challenges, it rarely happens. That's one important learning. Second important learning is there is absolutely no substitute to having absolutely great founders to back. If you back just good enough founders, it will probably not lead to a great outcome even in a good market. So it is important to always have great founders, and you have to also make sure the sector that you're investing in or the kind of business that you're investing in is at the right point of time when an inflection point is about to happen. Those are two important learnings that I take back. The third learning, as I already mentioned, shared with you, is that this is an emotional journey. You are here to meet with the founders and build a lifelong relationship. Anything short of that, I think, is a shortcut. One shouldn't take it.
Okay. Thank you for that, Arpit. All of these answers, I like to touch upon this at the end as well, but I just want to call it out right now. These have been truly a masterclass, and your perspective on things is absolutely it's very raw and it's very emotional and it's very inspiring to actually learn about. So thank you for
Thank
this.
you.
I'll switch gears now. Okay. So venture capitalism is an aspiration for many young people in our country, including me. Okay. So for all of us, what was your path to becoming a venture capitalist? How did you get your first break? And what challenges have you faced along the way?
So I am a person who has been around entrepreneurs for a long time.
Right.
So we started Headstart, and before that we were doing bar camps. So for about 5 years till 2012, when I actually joined T Labs, I was helping and supporting entrepreneurs, get to their best potential. So, and in the process, probably met thousands of entrepreneurs, seen many journeys. This is before the ecosystem even existed 10 years back, and a lot was not happening in our country. However, what happened was, and around this time I was also running my business called Academic Ventures, which is to commercialize technology. It was like a consulting company trying to commercialize technology, taking inspiration from my IIT Bombay days. and it was not doing well. So I had gone through that journey as well, where I was failing as an entrepreneur. An important why point came in my life. The why point was about what do I do next? Do I go and join a sales job, which is my previous career, or do I do something else? And I came across this Steve Jobs commencement address at Stanford, where he is mentioning people to asking people to go follow their heart. And this is exactly what I did. I followed my heart, and when I asked myself, what would I do even if I was not getting paid for it? And I said, I will do Headstart all day long, and will not feel tired about it. Right? And said, okay, what kind of things Headstart can give me? Headstart doesn't have a job opportunity. So what do? I go and join something which is closer to startup. So that's when T Lab happened, which is also a venture capital business of Times Internet. Absolutely loved it. Within 2 months, I realized that this is the best decision I have taken in my life, because I am getting paid to do what I really love to do. And then natural progression was to join Blume back in 2014, and it continues to be as exciting till date. So I was
That's
not
when,
like a typical I was not like a typical investor, or not training myself to be an investor. I love the fact that I can support entrepreneurs in their journey, and I continue to do that. So that's one thing. So for people like you, I really don't have an advice, because you may network as much as you like with people. You may write blog posts, but there are so many people who just stumble upon venture capital, and venture capital does seem quite easy from the outside. So therefore, it is very easy for people to believe that they will be good at it. It's not very different from product management. I'm sure you keep getting so many people asking you, how do I become a product manager? You can give them some tips, but none of them is really valid, because it is no standard definition of product manager. You do 10 different things, and everyone thinks they can be good product manager because they've seen the app that Uber has built, they've seen the app that Flipkart's have built, they've seen 5 other apps, and they think, oh, they have a view about everything and probably they're good at it, but they're not. Right? This is very similar to being venture capitalist. I really don't have a good answer to people who are saying, I want to be in the venture capital industry, other than you have to be demonstrating your interest in this area. You have to be demonstrating that you are very, very good at entrepreneurs. You love the fact that entrepreneurship is something. And second, you have to be, the only other way you can do is by either working for a smaller company which is into this business, or making angel investments yourself. Because nothing other than that will teach you what is a good venture capitalist. Right? And once you have done this for 2-3 years, you would have built credibility, and then you go to a venture capital and say that, see, I built a track record. I only put 5 lakh rupees into these 10 companies, but I have built a good track record. This is what the companies are doing. Therefore, I can claim to be a good investor. That, I think, is the surest path in today's world. Back in the day when I was joining Blume, the surest path was to work for McKinsey, graduate from an IIM Ahmedabad or better, and work for McKinsey for 2 years, and maybe some recruiters will call you, and you'll get into a larger firm like Sequoia as a senior analyst or something. That path is not valid anymore. There are so many more VC firms than just that, and also this cannot be the only path for people in the market today, because there are so few openings overall.
Right.
The only surest way of getting into venture capital is to start a firm yourself. And this is the surety. Yeah.
And I think, Arpit, one thing you mentioned, right, that commonality between product management and venture capitalism. So one thing that is always in my mind regarding product management is that so everyone, whether it is my peers, whether it is my friends, or everyone has an opinion about product management. Everyone has a certain perception in their mind when it comes to an ideal product manager, right, or someone. But in reality, is that it's a mix of a lot of things. It's much harder than it looks like, and there'll be a lot of days when you'll actually be groaning that, okay, this is not an easy job at all. But but the end result, that satisfaction that you derive when for example, an investment, invested company, thrives and grows further, or like, a product that you've launched reaches market fit, or it actually sees a lot of traction and adoption. That satisfactory end result is what drives the entire journey and the entire struggle.
But very few people are able to appreciate the way you are appreciating now because you had some experience doing this.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
similar
mean,
to venture capital. Yeah. Also, see, another important point about venture capital, and I tell this to people who want to apply this career, is that our feedback cycle is very, very slow. You will not know if you have made a good decision for 7 years sometimes. And it's a long period of time. Most people get responses like a product. You get response in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. As a salesperson, maybe 6 months worst case, and so on. Marketing people interact more quickly. But as a venture capital, it takes 7 years for you to know whether the business that you're invested in is a good business or not. And by this time, you will be good enough to do nothing else. So you're closing all the other doors in investing into the business. So it's very different from everything else out there.
right. Definitely. So, Arpit, I have one question for you, which is more macro in nature. Okay. And
Sure.
this is about the current state of the Indian economy and the entrepreneurial ecosystem itself. Okay. So, by the time this episode releases, I believe we'll be at the end of Jan, or at the start of Feb, right? And
Okay.
given how it's a new year, right? And Happy New Year, by the way. What
Yeah,
are
happy new
your
year to you.
what are your top five personal predictions for the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem for 2023?
5 predictions. Okay, let me start with top of my mind is electric vehicles. EV ecosystem is going to grow much faster. We will continue to grow much faster. We will see emergence of some of the fastest growing companies in this sector from startups. Some of the companies will may become unicorn this year or next year, or maybe close to become unicorn in the EV ecosystem. So that's one important thing. Second, I continue to think that the B2B SaaS ecosystem will have its own inflection, will continue to grow as fast. There's a lot of an important metric has now being started to track is the total revenue Indian product companies have made, and
Okay.
it crossed about, I think it crossed about $2 billion last year in 22.
Okay.
So in 23, this will continue to grow. I'm hoping we'll get to 3 to 5 billion, and maybe around 25 we'll hit maybe even $20 billion of revenue from this sector. It's going to become a very, very important part of Indian economy. Think about this. Our IT services, which is a very large industry, is about 200 odd billion. And at some point of time, they were also talking about 10s and 20s. So we are getting there. That's an important piece, right? So this is useful. I also think that a lot of founders will, because of the shock that everyone went through in 2022, in 23, a lot of people will start talking about metrics, revenue, profitability, and hopefully they will talk about listing, and maybe some listings will happen. So that's an important thing. A maturity of the ecosystem means that more and more IPOs should happen. As I was mentioning to you earlier, exits are important for us. Exits are important for the founders, and you're also making a promise to the larger market, allowing the retail investor to play in your company, which you have
Right.
built with hard work over the 10 years. So it's important to have a lot more IPOs. Hopefully, we'll start getting back to the IPO zone, and have even better IPOs. Market darlings can be created out of this ecosystem, which has not happened so far. Everyone is still questioning the business models, which is stupid, I think. Fourth, I think we will continue to have a lot more domestic capital participation in venture capital and in angel investment. In 2020, in year 2021, we had about 10,000 crores. So I'm hoping that we will continue to grow in that path. We will get to 15,000 or maybe 20,000 crores of domestic capital participation in VC funds and into startups. That's a trend which should pick up again. And fifth, one important thing which has become a distortion, so to say, is companies preferring to list or companies preferring to have Singapore or US incorporation before India incorporation. I think that should decidedly turn around, and India will become the default place to be as an incorporated headquartered entity for most businesses. Maybe global business like SaaS will continue to be US incorporated, but otherwise everyone else will be India incorporated, and the question will be settled forever as an important outcome of the macro. I'm hoping, and really, that's the direction we should go to.
Definitely, Arpit. Those are I hope all of those predictions come true. 1 year down the line, I think what I'll do is that I'll come to Bangalore. We'll have a drink together, and we'll look at the we'll look at all 5 of these predictions, and we'll see how well you fared.
I would absolutely do that. Absolutely have to do that. Making predictions, every time you make predictions, you feel butterflies in your stomach. But when it proves true, it feels great joy.
That's excellent. That's excellent, Arpit. So, Arpit, I usually have one last question that I ask every guest of mine who comes onto the show. Okay, I've done it. I've done it the past 21 times. All 21 episodes, I've done that. This is one episode where I'm not going to do that. Okay, so usually when as a parting note, I usually ask my guest, what advice do they have for other aspiring Indianauts, as we've dubbed you one. Okay, so whether it is aspiring entrepreneurs or aspiring investors or anyone who will be a contributor to the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem. But this entire episode has been a masterclass in that. It's just been a masterclass in the right way of thinking, in the right way of how advice is presented. And I just feel that asking you to summarize that in one question is just not fair because of everything you've shared with us throughout this episode. So all I'd like to say is thank you so much, Arpit, for joining us for this episode. It's been an absolutely brilliant ride, and I really appreciate you taking out the time to share your thoughts and thoughts with us.
Super, Gautam. It is lovely to be on this podcast, and hoping people who are listening will find this valuable. And I would love to hear feedback from all of you. Please reach out to me on my social profiles, and let's continue our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arpit. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this episode. The Indianaut podcast is available on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook to receive all updates on the upcoming episodes. We'll see you in the next one.